this week on incentives. Chloe learns that credit, rebates, or tax incentives may help make electric vehicle ownership more affordable than she thought. Oh, how the tables have turned, thanks to incentives.
Electric vehicles are worth watching, and there's an EV that's right for just about every lifestyle. Head to xenonev.com to learn more.
Nothing changes.
Life. Life.
Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. If you're listening to this episode, hopefully you are not in a frat because we are going to fight you today or tomorrow. No, but welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. This is your Penn State NFL Draft Guide episode. Don't want to brag too much, but we did a really good job last year predicting where people were going to go. So this is definitely an episode you want to listen to. Draft starts tomorrow. Penn State has 2 new recruits. We're going to talk about those. Have some fan questions to get to, as well as 2 players end up inside 24/7 Sports top 32 for this upcoming season, and neither of them are Drew Aller or Nick Singleton. All that and more in just a second. Welcome in everybody on YouTube. Doug, Shawn, he said that you should be doing up downs every time you're late to the show, and I think that's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Can we we'll put them on Twitter or Instagram or something. Maybe we'll do Instagram only just to build Instagram out. Just have you doing up downs on Instagram.
If I wasn't in my boxers right now, I would do them right on camera, but I don't want YouTube to take our video down.
Are you doing Winnie the Pooh right now? You got the shirt going on, but nothing underneath?
I mean, I got boxers on underneath. I'm not totally
pooing it?
fair down there, but
Oh man, that's pretty good. If you're watching on YouTube, just let us know where you're watching from. Thank you guys for being here. We'll get right into the show in 3, 2, 1. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Cory Listoki. With me, as always, the boxer wearing Shawn Kane.
yeah, they're actually Doing good. They're actually boxer briefs tonight, to be more specific. But yeah, I'm doing.
I'm glad you
good.
clarified that because honestly,
Yeah,
I don't know how many grown men still wear normal boxers.
I wear like a mix, but you know.
I feel like this is a pro boxer brief podcast.
As my girlfriend just scowls at me from the other room.
Sounds like she might be getting a little bit of a show. That's what it kind of sounds like. Dinner and a show?
Dinner and a show. That's a good way to put it, Corey. And she continues to roll her eyes.
A lot to talk about today, but the first thing I wanted to say is if you're watching on YouTube or just listening on a podcast, I'll describe it to you. But can you see this? Yeah, little green book right here. This is what I take my notes in. I have one for work. I have one for podcasts. I keep them separate. I actually used to have them all in one, and then it quickly got out of hand. And also I was showing my notes to somebody, and they were flipping through, and it's all podcasting, football stuff, and they're like, what's this all about? So I've dedicated separate green books now to each of them. And only reason I'm bringing this up today, if you're ever in the military, in the Army specifically, my dad was, and so he had a bunch of these green books when he was in the Army, and so that's kind of where it started. But I started a new book today, Shawn. First page for today's episode, or I guess I started a couple days ago, but first page of a new book to start the new season. So I'm very excited. It's always nice to start a new book like that.
So we're officially moved on to 2023.
Yes, if we haven't already, we definitely have now.
Didn't Coach Klein from the Water Boy, I think he had a green book too. That's what Red Bay stole from
Did he?
I think it was a little green book, yeah.
That makes sense. They're not that cheap. I don't want to sit here and brag about I mean they're not bad.
Money bags over here.
I know, but they're not like $1. You know what I mean? They're like I don't know. They're like $4 to $6 each, which is a little bit pricey for a notebook. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I just the opposite of money bags.
So you have a very particular notebook style.
Yeah, I'm only use these. Yep. Yep. And it's one of those ones where if you can't, you would know if someone ripped a page out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Speaking of which, about starting the season, there's no better indication that the season is nearing close, or we are officially in the what I like to call the please don't mess anything up portion of the season, where coaches now, spring practice is over, and you're just hoping that your athletes stay committed, they stay focused, and as the weather gets nicer, they behave themselves. And Penn State already into some trouble, reported today by the Center Daily Times, that tight end Theo Johnson was charged with simple assault and another misdemeanor. So he had 2 misdemeanors for getting in a fight, basically punching I'm guessing the lights out of a fraternity member and breaking his $560 glasses. And they have it all on video, according to whomever. So not looking good for Theo Johnson. We don't know. There wasn't a lawyer listed on the defense, which I thought was kind of interesting. But we'll see how it all goes, if they settle, whatever the case may be. But not exactly the way you wanted to start the late spring, summer, where the coaches aren't really in contact all the time with the players, Shawn.
No. And I mean, you have to be smarter than that when you're my high school football coach told me, and this was in high school, and I also think he might have been exaggerating a tad, but he said if you get caught doing something wrong, it's not just going to say you're a student of I went to Holy Cross, a student of Holy Cross High School. It'll say football player at Holy Cross High School. So that's amplified by about 1 million when you're a football player at Penn State. It's going to say Theo Johnson, football player at Penn State University. So you have to be smarter than that. And I'm sure James Franklin has drilled that home to him. And it doesn't really matter if the kid was in, there are 2 sides of every story. If the kid was being a douchebag to him, it doesn't matter. You have to be above that and not hit people. But hopefully he learns from that. And, gets back to us. It might also, now I think he did have an injury from what we've heard, like that's the reason he was out in spring. So I am wondering if there'll be any kind of suspension in the season or anything of that, anything like that. But none of that's been talked about. James Franklin hasn't even discussed this. So
yeah, this just happened. This just happened today, Wednesday, April 26th. So a lot to still kind of come out with that information. But I mean, it just comes back to this is the beginning of that season, right? Where you're going to have these things, kids being college kids, that kind of stuff just is what it is. And so we'll keep an eye on it. We'll let you guys know, but not a great start there. In other news, transfer portal news, Theo Johnson, Storm Duck cornerback transfers out, and has already found a new home, going to Louisville, and will be a Cardinal there. And if you ever try to tell me it's Louisville, you are incorrect. It is Louisville. At least
it's Louisville?
Louisville.
Louisville?
Yeah.
I always thought it was Louisville.
Yeah, that's how the Northerners say it. The Yankees say it, but down south it's Louisville.
I would have to hear how Muhammad Ali said it because he's from there.
Not Coach Satterfield still there? Is that who's there?
I think Satterfield's still there, yeah.
Yeah.
He almost beat us once.
Yeah. Former coach at App State. We haven't talked about it, and I want to just mention it that there's a video on YouTube. We put a YouTube video together for it. But Lions Legacy Club, the NIL collective for Penn State, had a massive multi-million-dollar deal with a couple of partners, Miter and West Shore Homes. We talk about it. There's a 5-minute YouTube video if you want to learn more about it. We're going to try to get somebody on from Lions Legacy Club in the near future to discuss that. And so that's why we haven't talked about it a lot. Something kind of fell through that we were hoping was going to happen. And so that's why we haven't talked about it yet. But I wanted to mention it, like we didn't just ignore it, because obviously that's a big deal. And I wanted to at least throw some sort of light on it before we just move on.
Yeah, there's been a lot made recently, kind of negative about Success with Honor. That's Jay Paterno, something he's heavily involved in, and their basketball adventures. But Lions Legacy Club is exclusively focused on football. They have a lot of people involved, from Mike Maudie right down the line. So yeah, this is, they just had a big donation come through. So yeah, this is, you're going to need all hands on deck, and hopefully you can see some cohesion between the two camps, because right now there seems to be a lot of tension on these Twitter streets between them.
Yeah, and you know what? People are giving a lot of crap to Success with Honor, and we're not here to pick sides. I could care less about who's the better one and all that. But Success with Honor, I saw, was doing some really good stuff with a lot of different players. Keandre Lambert-Smith was there. Was it Johnny Dixon? There's another defensive back over there that I saw they were filming stuff with. So Success with Honor is doing some good stuff. Lions Legacy Club just had a huge meeting. I think Landon Tangwa and a couple other guys were down in Maryland for a thing. So like both collectives are doing some good stuff, and I'm not here to and I'm not trying to say you were, but I just feel like there's a lot of hate towards one or the other, and I get it because of what came out of like the basketball dilemma and all that, but I still see Success with Honor doing some good stuff. So I don't think it's fair to just throw one aside. But people do whatever you want with your money. I don't care.
Yeah, and there has to be them working together. And yeah, people were obviously very emotional after the basketball this thing. The former basketball coach, who's now at another institution, I just James Franklin that. What happened there, but you can't just ignore everything else. And ultimately, we're gonna need them both. And you could be unhappy with some of the people involved there, involved in running it, but ultimately, we're gonna need them both. And I'm happy Lions Legacy Club is there, and I'm happy, and I just hope that it doesn't become like some kind of weird competition because that's not what we want.
Yeah, it's healthy competition is good, right? But yeah, and I don't think it has gotten to that point. I saw some troll was tweeted at Success with Honor. I don't know who it was specifically, but one of the members over there, I'll give my money to Lions Legacy, really snarky. And she straight up responded so professionally when she was like, good, that's awesome. I'm glad you're contributing to Penn State athletics. Right. Cool. And that's the right way to go about it. So that was cool to see there.
It's about the athletes. It's about that's what it's all about. Don't try not to get your personal feelings about who's running it get in the way. And look, people are free to say Lions Legacy Club should be run by different people or run differently, or Success with Honor should be run by different people and run differently. You're free to say that. But ultimately, it's about getting money into these athletes' pockets that work extremely hard and they year round to put on a good show for us. So that's what the main focus should be.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in. I have a 5-star review, Shawn. Like I said, we had a 5-star review, not last episode, but the episode before. And then last week we had a rating that was a 5-star, I believe. But we have another 5-star review to read. And this comes from our Skates 20 on 420, no less. So maybe it was smoking a little ganja to celebrate 420.
Was blazing.
I don't know. 5 stars says, new to the pod. Recently discovered the pod and immediately followed on Twitter. You guys clearly enjoy what you do, and it shines through each episode. Keep it up. Thank you, Skats. Make sure, if you're following us on Twitter, DM us. We'll send you a sticker for writing us a 5-star review. And, Shawn, what I think is interesting about this, first of all, thank you. But what I thought was interesting is they discovered the pod, and then they followed on Twitter. And I feel like usually, I'm thinking we have over 5,000 some followers on Twitter now. I would assume that usually the avenue is we have something funny we say on Twitter, or at least sometimes I think I'm funny on Twitter, and then someone maybe checks out the pod at one point. But Scats here is saying, no. I listened to the pod and then I went to Twitter, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's something you don't see a whole heck of a lot, especially if somebody doesn't. Especially if somebody does have a Twitter. If somebody doesn't have a Twitter, well, obviously they're not going to discover us on Twitter. But if somebody does have a Twitter, it's weird. It is weird, but I mean, I think it's cool. They probably looking for Penn State podcasts in the podcast store and just came across us. So, welcome and happy you're with us.
Hope we don't disappoint.
I hope not.
Cool, man. Well, before we get to the show, I do want to say that we have some housekeeping items. It's going to be a messy month of May. That's a hard thing to say. A messy month of May. There's going to be 3 episodes that are not going to be recorded live on May 10th, May 24th, and May 31st, just to give everybody an idea. We're going to have stuff for them, but they will not be live. So just kind of understand that. But I think we are going to have some pretty juicy content for you guys while we're not live.
Yeah, still stay with us. Cory had to go to Ireland, so that's where.
And move to State College in 2 weeks.
And move to State College. How dare he? So, yes. But that's honestly awesome that he's coming back to Pennsylvania. But yeah, like Cory said, we have some things up our sleeves, so you'll still be getting stuff every week.
So when we are not, when I'm not there and Twitter turns to crap, everyone just blames Shawn. Just remember that. Keep that in mind. Not Cory's fault.
Yeah, we're not going to be and just in case anybody was wondering out there, we're not getting a blue check mark. Just in case anybody was wondering.
Dude, did you see how much it cost?
I am not doing that. Yeah, it will cost $11.
No. For a basic person, yes. But if you were a corporation that wanted to be sponsored, they want $1,000 a month.
That's insane.
Which, I mean, I know we're not a corporation or whatever they call
What
a
would
corporation.
we be qualified as? Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought we would be considered like, not. I guess they kind of call it like a business, but like $1,000 a month, like that's disgusting. So I saw even like the Big Ten conference didn't even get a check mark. They're like, no thanks, not worth it. So that was kind of funny. You want to get into the show?
I was ready to start talking about Elon Musk. So yes, let's get into the show.
Yeah. You know how people.
Yeah, people get very in their feelings about Elon Musk. So.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
We already talked about the Penn State news, so we got that covered. We're gonna go into recruiting in a second. Then we're gonna talk NFL draft. I feel like we already talked Lion Legacy Club enough, so that's kind of done. We're out of order a little bit, but that's okay. Finish with fan questions, and then we're gonna finish with that 24/7 Sports Top 32 player. I think it's going to be an interesting list. I know we did that. Remember a couple weeks ago, I found that random website that had those listings. It kind of gave me that kind of vibe to it. So I was like, let's talk about that. It was a fun way to end the show. Yeah. Well, let's get into the show, I guess. Then let's talk. Let's put my little fancy thing on here and. That's so cool.
Love that. On the prowl.
On the prowl. Shawn, why don't you kick us off while I try to find some film for these guys? Do you want to start with the guy that committed? Is that Friday? No, yeah. Monday.
Yes. So, Garrett Sexton from the great state of Wisconsin. We got another offensive lineman from Wisconsin. Very athletic. Comes from a basketball background. He's still light, 6'7", 245. He's obviously going to bulk up. He actually played quarterback his sophomore year of high school. So he's kind of new to the position. So he's a little raw, but, very talented. And like I said, his athleticism really stuck out to me when you watch him on film. Looks like Luke Fickell at Wisconsin kind of slow rolled it with him. And they didn't offer till a few days before he ended up committing to Penn State. And I kind of wonder what Wisconsin's doing because Fickell didn't seem too into Harbor, and he didn't seem that into Sexton. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. But yeah, I think this is a nice pickup from a state that Penn State now has, according to 24/7 Sports Composite, 2 of the top 4 players in the state of a Big Ten rival.
Yeah, I still think. Oh, what did I do here? Did I lose? There he goes. I still think that one guy we're going to talk about in a second, and I guess it's Donnie Harbor. He goes by Donnie Harbor, not Donovan Harbor, so that's good to know for the future. I still think they weren't sold on them. Wisconsin wasn't with those 2 guys, but Wisconsin did offer, and they offered a little bit late, but they did offer Sexton. And to me, this is a big-time get, right? It wasn't just – you don't think about Minnesota and Iowa nearly as much when you think about, athletic or athlete level commits, but you're talking offensive linemen. Beating out Minnesota and beating out Iowa is a pretty big deal. And then throwing Oklahoma there. I said what the biggest thing is, Wisconsin offered him. And to me, that was hey, maybe don't commit yet. Let's just wait a little bit. The slowdown offer maybe. And he just visited Oklahoma, and that didn't matter. And he still committed to Penn State. So, just a really good pickup and a really athletic offensive tackle. I think they're going to be really happy with him. And again, Penn State's doing a really good job in the offensive line. I think we'll talk overall after we get to the second commit because, surprise, surprise, there is another commit after the fact. That another offensive line commit come up in just a second. But no, I think Sexton, honestly, one of the more polished guys, in my opinion, that I'm not saying he's going to play early, but feel really good about him playing on the outside compared to maybe a Caleb Brewer, who we still think might Might still play defensive line. We'll see. But they got some flexibility now, and they're loading up now with offensive linemen. So I like Sexton a bunch. I think this is one of the ones I wasn't sure was going to happen, and they were able to get it done. So, yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, and his upside really sticks out, too. Just somebody being that athletic and being a true tackle is going to be pretty invaluable for us. Do we want to get to our second commitment?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right, so second commitment, Egan Boyer. He decided to commit yesterday to the Nittany Lions from the great state of North Carolina. And kind of a similar story in a lot of ways. You know, he's going to obviously have some work to do in the weight room when he gets to Penn State. He's only 260 pounds right now. But again, it's, like I said, kind of a similar thing. His athleticism really sticks out to me. And the way he could move. And I didn't really see this one coming necessarily. But, you know, Penn State, in a state that they usually don't get a whole lot of action, going into North Carolina and getting a guy who had a Clemson offer. So he had pretty impressive offer sheet, pretty impressive list of places he visited. And again, same thing. I like how he plays, and I like his lateral movement really stuck out to me too.
Underrated guy, in my opinion. First of all, both these guys are top 30 offensive tackles. So they're both good. This guy's from North Carolina. Doesn't have a bunch of testing numbers in. This is a guy who I think with the summer circuit could jump up the boards and be a 4-star guy. He's a 3-star guy right now. This guy, in my opinion, I think T. Frage had a good way to put it on 3. Said that this was a guy who Penn State was used to having to hope and pray was going to be their next best guy at offensive tackle. Now he's a guy where they can develop and make sure he becomes that guy, which I think is a big fit. But he's got the athleticism. I think that stands out pretty clearly, and at least on film, which I think is more important than anything else. We'll see when the more testing numbers come out. But no, I think we talk a lot about like which guys are going to end up, you know, being risers and being fallers, and I've said it a lot with this class, but I really think that Boyer is one of those guys that's going to really increase on the board, really take a next step up. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 4-star when it's all said and done. So I really liked watching some of his film. I don't want to say I liked it more than Sexton, because I think Sexton maybe is a little bit more polished, but I like him, and I think I'm very excited for his for next year's film. So yeah.
You know who else was a 3-star offensive tackle?
Olu Fashanu.
Yes, sir. So obviously that's my expectation for him.
Yeah, I mean, why would it be any less than that, right?
Shoot for the stars. If you shoot for the moon, what do they say? If you shoot for the moon, you land amongst the stars. So.
Yeah, something like that. I do have some other news that I wanted to discuss real quick. Friday, I believe running back Corey Smith is going to commit. Penn State's a huge favorite there for the 4-star running back. He's a top 250 guy, top 20 running back. Another guy from Wisconsin. He's from the Central Catholic High School there in Wisconsin. Teammates with Donnie Harbor, came to the blue and white game with Harbor. I think he was ready to commit for a while. I think this is a big Penn State lead here. And then he does spell his name with an E. I'll forgive him for that. But I think this is another commit for Penn State. They'll get him to 13, and they'll have 13 commits before the end of April, which, I mean, that's insane to think about where they were just a month and a half ago. So they're looking really good, Shawn. I'd be very interested now. I know this is going to be a conversation that with Corey Smith, do they begin to maybe consider Quentin Martin somewhere else? Because you've got a good stable of running backs at the moment. Remember, you got Cam Wallace, you got London Montgomery, who we don't know how healthy he is yet. And mind you still have Nick Singleton and Katron Allen for 2 more years. And you have Trey Potts for another 2 years. So you've got a stable of running backs, and like you said, you've already got Barker in the 2025 class as well. So you've got some assurance there. And you know how I feel about playing your best guys on the other side of the ball, or maybe at least maybe wide receiver. I think Quentin Martin could play in a lot of different places. I'm curious if that discussion stays open, Shawn. We don't need to have that conversation too much, I guess, on April 26, 2023, but maybe come December, something we talk about a little bit more.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty full room this time next year for sure. But it's only going to be that way for 1 year. Then all of a sudden, you might be losing 3 running backs in 1 year. And then you're down to Montgomery, Wallace, the Quentin Martin, and potentially Corey Smith. So then you're down to 4 again. And not to mention Barker coming in. So, yeah, that's still 5. But yeah, like you said, having the versatility that Martin has, yeah, I mean, if they think he could work at safety, a la Nick Scott, then yeah, I'm sure they would think about moving him. The thing is, Quentin Martin might be the hardest guy to move in that room because he might be the best running back of the group. So maybe a guy like Cam Wallace, because Cam Wallace has legit speed.
He can play wide receiver. He split out quite a bit.
Maybe Cam Wallace moves.
Yeah, that's a good point. It'd be interesting to
see. And I mean the other thing is, and you don't want to hope anybody goes to the portal, but there's probably going to be some natural attrition because that's just the way it goes. So I just hope 13 guys don't hit the transfer portal all in a week after spring game.
hint, nudge, nudge, Colorado. Yeah, since that came up, Penn State did offer one of the wide receivers out of Colorado, whose name I will not remember at the moment, but he had 2 touchdowns and 150 yards in a spring game. And so he had a big spring game. He was one of the only guys that Colorado basically didn't fire. They straight up said that they fired guys and kicked guys out of their program. If you're curious on the NCAA rule of that, schools can do that, but they still have to honor the scholarship portion of that if those guys decide not to transfer. So if you're curious how that kind of works, I know that USC did something similar. They got rid of about 6 or 7 guys when Lincoln Riley got there. But to me, just the demeanor at which Deion Sanders has done it just doesn't really sit right with me. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of good articles out there. The Athletic had a really good article about it today. But basically, one of the guys, he had spoken with Sanders the very first time when Sanders was first hired, and the next time he ever spoke to him again was when Sanders was telling him to leave. And so there's a lot of those kind of things. I heard there's some good stories, Shawn, about in film room, the old guys were getting chewed out way more than the guys that Sanders brought in, et cetera. So there's a little bit of nepotism and what I don't know if that qualifies as nepotism, but a little bit of that going on too. So I don't know. Colorado is going to be an interesting case study for many, many years to come. But before we completely divert, and I know that was me who diverted, I had one more note I wanted to bring up recruiting, and then I'll let it turn it to you. I wanted to mention quarterback Michael Van Buren because a month ago, we thought this was a slam dunk. Penn State, he's expected to commit in July, and everything's pointing towards Penn State. He had just visited. Life was good. And now last week he was at Oregon, and he's going back to Oregon this week. So back-to-back weeks going out to Oregon. I mean, that's not as good as it can get right there. So, and then it hint, nudge you a little bit more. I guess Oregon had a quarterback in Arizona who was thinking about committing and has kind of backed off his original commitment date. So, Shawn, I don't want to sit here and tell you, but I don't know if Penn State gets Michael Van Buren as of April 26th at 8:36 at night. I don't feel good about it, Shawn. And then I don't know I don't know how to feel about the quarterback situation because Samaj Jones is all but going to West Virginia, and Cromanhook just said, hey, I'm done. I'm 100% committed to Florida State. I mean, Penn State is all of a sudden scraping at that point. I don't know.
Yeah, we're kind of like the Jonah Hill gif. Well, might as well F myself. That's kind of where we're at right now. But in all seriousness, yeah, I don't see Michael Van Buren coming here. A guy that Penn State supposedly has been getting a little bit more involved with is Trevor Jackson from Florida. So he might be a guy to keep an eye on. And I remember, and Penn State just offered him. And I remind everybody last year when was the guy's name Stokes who decommitted last year?
Marcus Stokes, yep.
Marcus Stokes. When he backed out, I brought up Jackson Smolik. Jackson Smolik ended up committing. So I'm kind of a Nostradamus when it comes to this stuff. So look out for Trevor Jackson. That might be a guy that makes his way up to Happy Valley.
Okay, that's a good one to keep an eye on. Yeah, and he's been, I think actually with him, he has been to he's been to a Penn State game before. He was at the Whiteout in 2016, if I remember correctly, which is just kind of crazy.
I was there too.
Yeah, I was there as well. So, yeah, that's oh, one other thing I was going to mention recruiting wise. I mentioned a high 4-star, almost 5-star defensive lineman in Benedict Ume, who we're talking about. If Penn State can somehow keep a top 10 class, they need a guy like Ume, who might be a 5-star guy. You need some of those guys to increase that rating a little bit, bump those numbers up a little bit. Those are rookie numbers. Ume was supposed to visit Michigan this past week and didn't make it out there. So obviously not done, but always a good sign when somebody doesn't get out to Michigan. Pele, the former Alaskan, who's now living in Pennsylvania, has set some OVs, set one to Michigan, set one to Penn State. So we'll be excited for him. Obviously,
I knew one of those guys too.
You did?
That went from Alaska to living in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well,
I knew one of those guys.
I don't have any deep sources with it, but I know he visited Michigan. It sounds like Michigan's involved there. So obviously, I know a guy from Alaska who played high school football with his dad, I believe. So basically, I know the guy. Basically.
Is this guy's name Corey Listoki too?
No.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, really weird. When I saw that he was originally from Alaska, I was like, okay. And then I saw he was from Anchorage. I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, he played at I think it was East High School, and that's where my one buddy used to play. And sure enough, it's a tight knit community, especially the Tongans. The community up there really sticks together. So, yeah, sure enough. And I don't even know if he's Tongan. He might be Pacific Islander, Samoan. Who knows? But anyway, very, very tight knit community up there. Vietnamese.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about with Alaska is, isn't it just kind of Anchorage and then a bunch of other stuff? They're just like emptiness. And then like the little town that Sarah Palin was the mayor of, and then like more reindeer.
That's not that far from Anchorage.
That's Wasilla, right?
Wasilla and Palmer are pretty much identical. Like they're right next to each other. You can get there pretty quickly from Anchorage. I would try to I don't know how to compare it, but it's really not that far out. I would say like those areas are kind of a lot like central Pennsylvania. Like obviously way bigger mountains, but about the same. Towns about the same size as like those random towns in central Pennsylvania. Like, yeah.
Okay, so there are people who live there. Okay.
Yeah, it's not just Native Americans running around doing their thing. Like, no, it's pretty good. But anyway, we're way off topic now. We'll keep an eye there, but obviously you want to see some of those higher commit guys stay on board. But no, I think Penn State's class is doing really well. We have some fan questions a little bit later in the show that ask a little bit more questions about those. Shawn, I don't have like an NFL draft guide one, Oh, we didn't play. Oh, we're going to play it now. Sorry. Sorry. Just had to play it. We didn't play it for the commit, so we had to play it at some point.
Oh, yeah, we had to give them their music. Are we going to do it twice?
No, but that was actually now into the NFL draft guide. I guess I could do this. Oh, no. I didn't mean to push that.
This is for the NFL draft.
I'm sorry, everybody. I pushed the wrong button. And I don't know if you push it again, if it pauses it, but I really don't want it to play twice, so I didn't risk it. So I apologize for that. I pushed the wrong button. I will hit the film room button, though, because... Let's talk draft, Shawn. NFL draft starts tomorrow night. Joey Porter Jr. has been invited to the green room, I think they call it, which basically is hopefully for people that are going to be picked in the first round or so. A lot of talk out there. I saw Einstein von Braun, Mr. said something that a couple reports thought that maybe Joey Porter Jr. was slipping all of a sudden. I don't know if that's more of like someone threw that out there just so they could maybe get their guy. Like maybe Seattle started that rumor sitting at 20, hoping that he would fall to them at 20. Who knows how, go watch Draft Day with Kevin Costner and enjoy a mediocre movie about the origins and the backflows and channels of Draft Day.
That is the worst good movie I've ever seen in my life.
That's a good way to put it.
Because it is not realistic in the slightest. Like, you're not sitting there 2 hours before the draft and you go, hey, this guy got kicked out of the Ohio State game or the Wisconsin game or whatever. And then everybody freaks out all at once. But then you don't get the backstory till 2 hours before. That just doesn't happen. The only time something similar to that happened was when somebody literally tried to sabotage Laramie Tunsil. And that's about it. But yeah, that's not the way any of this works.
That's not how any of this works. Anyway, so I guess, Shawn, I thought we'd go through some of these guys and we just talk about where we think they're going to land. We can start with Joey Porter Jr. Penn State's never had a defensive back taken in the first round of the NFL draft. Obviously, Jaquan Brisker did not do it, but probably should have done it if everyone wanted to listen to us. I'm assuming you believe Joey Porter Jr. is going to get that done.
I think so. And you have to remember a couple things, guys. So I read the Peter King thing that had him falling in the first round. And look, that could happen. There are always guys that fall on draft night. A lot of times these mock drafts aren't correct, and you really don't know what teams are going to do. You honestly don't. And it's that time of year before the draft where everybody starts lying. Like, for the reason that Cory said, Seattle or New England or Pittsburgh, they have their mindset on Joey Porter, and they're just putting up smoke screens, and that's very common. And the thing is, Cory, I don't see a reason why he would drop. Like, that's kind of what I'd be confused about. Like, unless he bombed in interviews or something, I don't know. Like, he's still a very lanky guy who could run and has great coverage skills and is physical. Like, he's what teams are looking for in the NFL. So I don't see a reason why he would drop, especially all the way to the second round. I could see him maybe not getting picked in the top 20. Okay, I could see that. That happens sometimes. But especially, you don't know how the draft's going to shake out until it's live. So, yeah, I could see something like that happening. But all the way to the second round, I just can't see it. So, yes, I do expect him to get taken in the first round.
Yeah, I agree. Just don't see any way. I thought he did a really good job coming back this year and working on being not as physical, or at least not getting in trouble for it. And I think that solidified it to me. So I agree with everything you said there. Kind of hope, I don't know where. I mean, I know you don't like the Steelers. Would be cool for him to go play for his dad's team. I really hope he doesn't end up with the Seahawks, because we'll never get to see him play. And I guess the Redskins would be okay, or not the Redskins, I'm sorry, the Commanders. My God,
Tisk.
that was it's not even excusable anymore. Like, that was forever ago.
The Washington professional football team.
Yeah. But no, I guess it'd be better than the Patriots. That was the other team that's been floating around. But we'll see. We'll see. I think we agree there. I think most people agree there. So I don't think we need to spend too much time on him. But it is going to be cool that Penn State's going to get a DB drafted. Obviously, Penn State's had a lot more success with DBs lately, and I think that's going to continue moving forward. Terry Smith's done a fantastic job there. Let's go to I think one of my favorite and most intriguing prospects in the draft, and that's tight end Brenton Strange. I think we've said this already on the show maybe a month or two ago. For the bloggy on YouTube just said canceled RIP hardcore for me saying the Redskins. If you're not already subscribed to For the Bloggy, make sure you go ahead and do that. But we said this before about Brenton Strange. Like, nobody helped themselves out more this past season than Brenton Strange. I mean, he went from borderline getting drafted to now I think he's a surefire day 2 guy. I just do not see him falling out of day 2. I just don't. The tight end class is not crazy strong. You got Kincaid, who I think people are crazy on, although I don't really think Kincaid's that much better than Strange. And the little bit of film I've watched, you got the one guy from Georgia, you got the one guy from Notre Dame, but I mean, it's not an overly crazy class for tight ends. And Brenton Strange has shown the ability to not just catch the football, not just play in space, but he's been able to block, not just at the tight end position, but been able to block in space as well. And he's been able to be reliable and run pretty good routes and shown the ability to run after the catch. So I think he checks all of the boxes here. And I really think a team that is run-centric is going to fall in love with him. And maybe it's your Dolphins. I'm not sure. But no, I'm really excited. I'm really proud of Brenton Strange, because we all thought after Freiermuth left, like, well, okay, what's next? And Brenton Strange maybe didn't take that immediate step, but he has really developed and he has continued to work and he's earned it. And so I'm very excited for him to get drafted. He's a guy that, again, a year ago, we maybe didn't know was going to get drafted, and he's shown up. So respect to him. I'm excited for him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a day 2 draft guy. I could see him definitely slipping into day 3. I do think the tight end class is a little stronger than you do. There's Laporta from Iowa. There's Musgrave from Oregon State. I believe there's another guy from North Dakota State. So I do think it's a little stronger. As Corey gives me thumbs down.
Wow.
Yes. And look, I like Brenton Strange a lot. I think Brenton Strange can play in the NFL for sure. But I do maybe what's holding him back is maybe they're concerned about athleticism. But I think he's athletic enough. I mean, he could block, he could catch, and I don't know. I think he could do it. But I could see him kind of maybe getting lost in the shuffle a bit and maybe slipping into the 4th or 5th round. And I hope I'm wrong, because it would be awesome if he gets drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round.
If he drops to the 5th round, I will buy you a beer.
Okay.
I just really don't. And now I do think sometimes people, and I think we say this every year. I can say that now because we talked about this last year. I do think people sometimes start to think like, oh, there's no way this person goes any later than this. And then you remember there's only 32 picks per round. And so, like, it's not that hard for someone to fall. And so I don't want to use that lightly when I say I don't think he'll fall to the 5th round. I really just think someone's going to fall in love with him, and he's going to be that safety blanket, a guy you don't have to take off the field on third and shorts or third and longs. He can be out there all the time. I think someone's going to fall in love with him. Shawn, I do want to, as we transition to the third player here, ask this question to you. Do you think Jair Tig Brown gets picked before Brenton Strange?
Yes.
Okay, and you feel good about that?
Yes.
Okay. I think if you like in a perfect world, I think you're correct, right? But I think people are going to value Brenton Strange more about what he can potentially bring. And I feel like maybe you're rolling the dice a little bit more with what Jair Brown could bring, right? Like Jair Brown, fantastic player. Don't get me wrong. I think they both deserve to go in the second round, if not sooner, to be honest with you, with Jair Brown. You know I love Jair Brown. I'm just wondering if GMs view Jair Brown the same way we view him, because we view him as a turnover machine, guy who's always around the football, a leader, etc. And that deserves all those things. Does a GM look at Jair Brown and say, okay, I have a little bit questions about his tackling in space. I have a little bit of questions about if he's big enough. His top end speed isn't amazing. Does that bring him back a little bit more, where Brenton Strange, you know what you're getting, right? You're not really gambling as much. So maybe he won't be as much of a bust, but Jair Brown would be more of a gem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Tig has more upside than Brenton Strange. I mean, they're two different positions, but Brenton Strange is pretty much a finished product. And this is probably going to be what he is, and that's fine. I think what he is good enough to potentially start in the NFL. Whereas Tig Brown, you could do more with him. And he has shown an ability to play, first off, in two different schemes and excel, but also just play all over the field. And I think that's going to be something that GMs are going to value. They're going to value him being a magnet for the football. And they're going to value his leadership ability. Like, he's a guy that I've seen some mocks have him fall past round 3. I don't think there's any shot of that. Any shot. And I might be on, this might be hashtag Cold Takes Exposed or whatever it is. But I really don't think this guy falls past third round, because there's going to be a GM somewhere that's going to, I can't see a GM. There's going to be a GM that says we could probably grab him in round 4, but I want to get him now and make sure that we have him. I just think he's one of those guys, and I know for a fact he blew people away in the interview process. I also know James Franklin lobbying him like a pharmaceutical company lobbies a crooked politician. Draft this guy. Do not let him fall past you into round 4. You want him on your team. And also, there's the Brisker factor. And fair or not, the GMs look at where you went to school. And if they're like, Penn State safety. Look at how good Brisker was last year. Brisker was the best rookie safety. I could see them looking at Jair Brown and thinking almost subconsciously they know how to produce safeties. And
so here's,
I think they're going to pick him. I think they're going to pick him in the first 3 rounds.
I agree with that. I just think there was, like, Brisker, in my opinion, his tackling made me more comfortable taking him early. That to me.
Oh, me too. Brisker is a better prospect for sure.
Okay, so we agree there. And then Brisker was what? Second round, 20th pick in the second round, I think, somewhere around there.
He was. Yep.
So when you think about it like that, okay, so Jair Brown, just off of those, and we know Brisker should have went higher than that, but now you're looking at potentially a third round guy. Now he does slip into that third day potentially. And so I don't know. It's a tough one. It really is going to be on which GM values the turnovers that he brings, right? The havoc. All it takes is one Manny Diaz in the world of the NFL to say, I want this guy on my team to cause this amount of trouble. Because, again, go back to all the way when he was in at Lack Life. I mean, he's caused turnovers everywhere he's gone. So I think that will pop out to somebody. I think of all the guys, like Strange, I'm very excited for and happy for, but Brown is the guy I'm like most interested in seeing how his career plays out, because I really want him to do well. A guy who didn't have any offers coming out of high school. And I just know that he has the ability to be a really exciting football player. Like he could be he's got a little bit of honey badger in him, you know, Shawn? He's got a little honey badger in him.
Oh, 100%. Like that's actually a pretty good comp, I think. I mean, high end, because Honey Badger was an awesome pro, but just being able to create havoc on the defensive side of the football. And I mean, turnovers win you games, especially nowadays. Like if you win the turnover battle, there's a very good chance you're gonna win the football game. And another safety, low key, that kind of helps Penn State, Nick Scott. So Nick Scott was the safety on a Super Bowl winning defense, and ended up making some key plays in that Super Bowl. So, like I said, is it fair?
That entire playoff, actually. He had some big plays in the entire playoff.
Yeah, in the NFC Championship game. Like, he was a big part of the defense, and he was a guy that just grinded. And, I mean, he's become a very good NFL football player. And I think, like I said, almost subconsciously that matters to general managers. So yeah, I think there's going to be, and all it takes is one GM. There's going to be a GM that says
one Kevin Costner,
right?
Who says take Brown no matter what.
Take Brown no matter what, and then it says in parentheses somewhere in round 3.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. We could change the podcast to Jair Brown podcast, because I love talking about that guy so much. He's so fun to watch. We didn't even talk about his ability to rush the passer. You know what I mean? Like he can rush the passer too. So yeah, I'm excited for him. I don't know. I guess I would agree with that and say I think he gets taken before Brenton Strange. I think they both are gone in day 2. I really do.
And I hope so.
I'll let you choose where we go next, because then it gets messy.
All right, want to talk about a guy who I think is going to fall a little bit, but I think I could see starting?
I know who you're going to choose.
Juice Scruggs.
Juice Scruggs. I knew it.
Yep, he's one of my guys. Yeah, so again, he won our Mr. Reliable, and we love Juice Scruggs here. And he really has everything you want in a center. Good leadership ability, smart player, and tough as nails. And that's really what you want in a center. And he also has athletic ability. He could get out and be a lead blocker for a running back. I think what could hurt him in this process, and I think he'd be a day 2 guy if he didn't get in that car accident. Because the thing is, I don't know what's in his medicals. I mean, I think it was a back injury, and I don't know what the severity of that was. And these GMs know, and I think that could scare some GMs. And I still think, provided he stays healthy, he has a chance to be a starter in the NFL. Like, I feel better about Juice than I did about Connor McGovern and Ryan Bates. And they're both starters in the NFL. Well, Connor McGovern's a starter, right? Yeah, so I feel better about Juice than I did about those guys. But I would understand GMs maybe not using a 3rd or 4th round pick on him because they're just unsure about his medicals. And I think that could kind of bite him in the ass a little bit. But there's going to be some lucky team that drafts him maybe in round 5, maybe in round 6, and he's going to be a real diamond in the rough for him.
I like that. Yeah, I have 4 through 6 for him.
I could see 4th round too. Yeah,
it just depends on, like I said, if somebody falls in love with him and he has all those intangibles, right? And he has that kind of come from behind story, and we've talked about him so much and how important he was on that offensive line last year when everyone else was getting injured. Juice Scruggs was the anchor. He kept it all together. I mean, just played an incredibly important role. And as we talk to the 2023 season, you could really argue they're going to miss Juice Scruggs the most on that offense. And I just saw that we'll get to the 24/7 sports thing a little bit later, but an Illinois defensive tackle makes that top 32 list. And I'm like, man, I know it's April, but I don't really want to be thinking about Hunter Norzad versus this guy just yet. Like, I wish we had Juice Scruggs for that. So I agree. We had a question on Twitter at Hardcore PSUFB about who do you think might get taken earlier than what everyone is saying, and Juice was a name that popped up quite a bit. So, yeah, be interested to see where it ends up. Parker Washington next. Sound good to you?
Sure.
So I will go on record and just pat myself on the back one more time and say I told everybody that Parker Washington was going to declare for the NFL draft. That was just going to happen. And the reason I said that was because his measurables weren't going to get any better. He wasn't going to get any taller. He wasn't going to get any faster. His ball skills, as great as they are, were already really good. He's already proven that. He had 2 massive games against Ohio State. He had some really amazing catches, whether it was in the Arkansas game, in the Outback Bowl, or the Minnesota game. He had some phenomenal catches. So he's already proven everything he's needed to prove or what he's capable of. He's shown the ability to make plays after the catch. He's really found ways, and in my opinion, surprised a lot of people with his ability to high point the ball, not being a tall guy. But at the end of the day, he's not a tall guy. He is quick. I wouldn't necessarily call him top end speed fast. I don't like being negative too much here, but I don't think he's amazing against press man coverage. I think sometimes there was a little bit to be desired there. And probably the biggest thing going against Parker Washington right now is he's coming back from an injury that we don't know happened. And so I have him 4 through 6 as well, but I lean more towards the back end of that. I don't know how healthy he is. And I think teams are going to look at him and think we can get him a little bit later. Let's use our 4th or 5th round pick on someone else. We can still probably get him in the 6th round pick. That being said, all those things saying about maybe him not getting drafted that high, I think he's a guy that comes into your summer camp and kicks ass and proves it on the field. And so I got 4 through 6 for him, but I'm very excited for him to get healthy. And I think in the right offense, in like an offense where he can just catch underneath stuff all day and just turn it upfield and break a couple tackles and expose the safety all day, I think he could thrive for years in the NFL. So I really think for Parker Washington, the fit is going to be really important, Shawn.
Yeah, he's the type of guy that I could see going to a place like the Patriots, like that kind of offense where it's underneath stuff and you just move the chains, because that's kind of what he excels at. Like you said though, Corey, like a lot of this stuff is measurables, and I'm really not sure about his measurables because he's not overly fast. He's not that big, and he's coming off an injury. And yeah, that's gonna hurt you in the draft process. So I tend to think 5th or 6th round for Mr. Washington, but again, that doesn't mean he can't be a good pro. And I do think in the right situation, in the right spot, in the right offense, yeah, he's a guy that could really do some good things. And his pass catching ability has that's his calling card, is just his pass catching ability. He'll hang on to the ball through big hits, and I think it could mean something to some GMs that he played his best games against Ohio State. So that shows you that he has the ability to be a big time performer and excel against. Yeah, and excel against NFL, the most NFL ready competition Penn State plays every year.
Absolutely agree. Jets, Packers come to mind. Someone that kind of really likes to throw the underneath stuff. We'll see. Let's go to, I guess, is a polarizing guy. and PJ Mustipher. I have him 4 through 7, and I don't even believe myself for saying that, to be honest with you, because I think he's a second day guy, no less than a second day guy personally. But everyone else has seemed to kind of give up on him. I've seen some people say undrafted for PJ Mustipher, and I just think that's barnacles. I just think he's too good. Now, there's questions. He only had 3 sacks in his career. I'm like, well, he's a defensive tackle, and there's been some really good defensive ends in his career that got to the quarterback before he could. And of course, he's had some injuries in his time. But no, I just think he is too good to fall out of the draft and then to be taken that late in the third day. So I have 4 through 7. I want to say earlier than later, but all the things that I've read are saying he's going to be a late pick. And to be honest, Shawn, I don't get it. I know we didn't have a good combine, but I don't get it.
Yeah, PJ. I mean, do I think he'll go undrafted? No, I can't. I don't think he'll go undrafted. He's another guy that I think the interview process is really going to help him. And there's going to be a team that says, well, I could see him going undrafted. We might be able to grab him as a UFA, but I don't want to take that chance. Let's just take him now. And I hope so. Because, the thing with him, Corey, I think if he played in like 1980, he'd be thought of as like a top 3 round pick. But the problem is when it's, it is a passing league. Although in the past couple of years, analytically, teams have been running the ball more. But it's still definitely a passing league. I mean, guys like PJ Mustipher, there's not a lot of defensive tackles like PJ Mustipher in the NFL anymore. And you have to have some kind of ability to be able to get after the passer. And I think this past season, PJ was just mainly a run stuffer for us. And I think when teams watch him, that's kind of what they see. Now, it doesn't mean that's not valuable, but I think he's got to be able to show some. I think what could hurt him in the draft process is struggles at times getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't disagree with you. I'm frustrated.
Draft him because he'll be good.
Yeah, I'm frustrated with it, right? Because the talent's there, the personality's there. It's just one of those ones that you kind of hate the NFL for it. Let's go Mitch Tinsley next. I have 6-7 for him. And some people thought maybe higher. Some people say undrafted. I think he gets drafted. I think he's shown enough. Again, high volume at Western Kentucky when they were throwing the ball all over the place. Came to Penn State. Had to kind of split duties with a bunch of different wide receivers there. Had his moments. Purdue game had a really good game. Minnesota game had a good game. Auburn game had a really good game. Definitely had his moments. Had a really nice catch in the Rose Bowl. Good route runner. Good after the catch. Slippery. I'd give him slippery. Not crazy over the top speed. I wouldn't say crazy impressive hands. Just good hands. Not like a liability or anything like that. I just don't know if anything flashes off that makes me go like, oh, you got to take this guy. You know what I mean? And so for that, I got him 6-7.
Yeah, I think with him, he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. And I don't mean that as an insult either. Like, I don't know what wow factor he has. Cue the Owen Wilson wow. Wow. And, I really like Mitchell Tinsley when he was at Penn State. I thought he came in and he definitely met expectations. But I just don't know if his traits from college necessarily translate over to the NFL. And I could actually I think there's a good chance he falls out of the draft. And that would suck, but it doesn't mean his NFL career is over. I think he's going to be picked up within the first 10 minutes after the draft. So,
All right, Sean. As I knock my headphones out of my ear. Because, of course, the Clifford Wars never end.
oh, here we go.
Do you think Shawn Clifford gets drafted?
No.
You don't? I think he does. Shockingly to everybody. I do.
Okay. All right. Elaborate.
Who's the guy for the 49ers? Iowa State quarterback?
Oh, jeez. Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Brock Purdy got taken right in the 7th round, didn't he? Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
You cannot tell me that Shawn Clifford is not as good as Brock Purdy. Just can't tell me. Can't tell me he's not as good as him. Can't do it. I don't know if he's better. You give me Shawn Clifford with that defense and all that, they probably win the same amount of games that Brock Purdy did. Purdy had a really he got really popular going into his junior year, I believe, and had a really bad junior year, had to stay for his senior year because it was so bad. And anyway, the reason I bring him up is just because I think the NFL and GMs in general love quarterbacks. I mean, they love quarterbacks. They take quarterbacks way earlier than they should. And because of that, I think quarterbacks are going to fly off like they usually do. And I think Shawn Clifford gets drafted. I think he killed the interview process. I think somebody's going to want him in their quarterback room. And maybe people look at the 49ers who literally ran out of quarterbacks and they go, in a situation where all of our guys are dead, who would we want to have? Shawn Clifford's a good guy to have. So I think somebody takes a chance on him. I think he gets drafted. I feel pretty good about it. I put 6 to 7 for Clifford. I feel pretty good about that.
I think there might be a team that drafts Shawn Clifford in the 6th round.
Maybe.
Huh. I don't know. I can't see it. I was just comparing.
Hey, you're only as good as your last game, right?
Sure. I was comparing Cliff and Purdy's stats. Some of them are comparable, but I think the one that stuck out to me is Purdy's senior year. He had a 72% completion percentage. And Cliff had a 64.4. And 7 points, that's a pretty big gap. So, I mean, I don't know. I think he goes undrafted. Do I think he gets picked up by a team? I do. Right. Because the Cliff does have traits that NFL teams are looking for in a scout/backup team quarterback, or a scout team /backup quarterback. And that's that he's got it between the ears. I mean, if you look at all the quarterbacks in this draft, he might be the best guy pre-snap. And that's very beneficial for him. And if anything could get him drafted, I don't think it's absurd to say he could get drafted. If anything could get him drafted, it'll be his mind. And teams might say, look, we need a scout team quarterback. This guy could pick up any playbook. He's played under Joe Mulroney, 4 different offensive coordinators, so he knows a bunch of different schemes. Yeah, that could potentially get him drafted. At the very least, it'll get him picked up as an undrafted free agent.
Wow.
And yeah, I could see him hanging around some NFL teams for a few years. The one thing with Cliff, are we sure, and not an insult at all, are we sure he really wants to be in professional football long term? Because he has so many business ventures. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You think so?
I think so. I'm not reading too much into that. I'm not buying too much into it. Okay. Agree with everything you said. I'm just not going to die on this hill as I would other hills with Shawn Clifford. I totally can see him going undrafted too, but I think 6 or 7. Why not? Just to notch one more rhinestone in my Shawn Clifford belt. Okay. Do you think Chris Stoll gets drafted?
Probably not, but he will get picked up.
Long snapper of the year, baby.
That's right.
I think he does get picked up as well.
Need a long snapper.
Nick Tarburton.
Nah, I think he's undrafted.
Me too. Be curious to see if he makes a roster. I think he has the size and a good mixture of run defense and pass rushing ability.
Yeah, I like
to
him
maybe
as a college
and the
player.
size to maybe play inside if they need him to as like a seventh defensive lineman for a team. Be interesting to see what happens there. Jonathan Sutherland, I'm gonna 100% emphatically say not drafted. Maybe he makes it as a special teams guy.
People do hang around on special teams. I don't think he gets drafted, but
Leader, he's a leadership.
that's the thing. Like, if we're sitting here in August and we're like, "Wow, Jonathan Sutherland made the Chargers," I'm also not going to be floored because, yeah, I mean, he's a great special teams guy and people love being around him. But I don't think teams are going to spend a draft pick on him. No.
For the bloggy on YouTube says, just wasn't talking about PJ Mustipher. Just wasn't the same guy post injury. Might have come back too soon. Noah Kane situation. The difference in PJ's 2021 tape and 2022 tape is jarring. Hoping he can get back to what he once was. That's from the experts at For the Bloggy. I will say this, just because Noah Kane got brought up. Noah Kane is potentially going to be a stud at LSU this year. Like, he's their guy right now at LSU. And I don't want to throw him in a Heisman contention, but LSU's going to have a good football team. I don't know I know it's a Penn State football podcast, but I like to give people some outside perspective sometimes. LSU's going to be a good football team this year. And Noah Kane's going to be the lead back. So I think he's going to get some national recognition, which is always cool to see if former Penn State running back Noah Kane. Just randomly throwing that out there.
And former Penn State quarterback Will Levis might be the number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah. But he eats mayo, or he puts mayo in his coffee. So I don't really know if we want to take credit for him. He does a lot of weird things.
So, Corey, what do you think? Should Penn State have started Will Levis over Sean Clifford?
Don't
what do we
get
think
started
here?
on that.
What do we
Don't
think?
get me started. Barney Amore, Jake Pinniger, undrafted. You think they're going to make a roster? Amore, maybe. Pinniger, probably not.
Probably. I don't like to say no, but yeah, I don't think so.
Just say no. Just say no. Is there anyone else I missed?
Robbie Gould made NFL Hall of Famer, and I never thought he'd be anything.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening. We have fan questions now, but that will do it for the NFL portion of this. Again, starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'll probably watch it here and there. I don't plan to sit there all day Saturday and watch it, but I got some packing to do. I might have it on while I'm packing.
My buddy and I have already decided we're going day drinking Saturday. So,
there's a NFL first round drinking game. I don't know if it's a beer for every pick. I don't know how they do it, but it gets pretty crazy pretty quickly. Yeah,
that's 30 to 31 beers because Stephen Ross is an idiot and the Dolphins forfeited their pick this year.
Yeah, so I forgot there's only 31. So
yeah.
Okay, well let's
Stephen Ross.
Almost hit the news sound again on accident. Let's get into some fan questions. You guys can't hear that on the podcast, but that's okay. There we go. This question was from Tyler on Instagram that we forgot. Let me record this. Here we go. This question's from Tyler on Instagram. Said, just watch the blue and white game, not intently, but 75%, which I think is pretty solid. Good job, Tyler. I saw the defense is already competing at a high level. Denied Dennisette was all over the place. Carter and Kobe King, the offense left a lot to be desired, but I'm tracking it. It's supposed to be vanilla. Do you and Shawn think the defense can improve with more havoc plays this year? And I don't want to answer that second part of the question. So we're just going to talk about Havoc plays. Shawn, do you think they can have more Havoc plays this year than last year?
I mean, the thing is, they could. They could because Abdul Carter is in year 2. But you're gonna have to find somebody to replace Jair Brown's production, and Tig was really what made this defense go. Now it kind of depends on how you feel about not only Abdul Carter but a guy like Zeki Wheatley, because Zeki Wheatley, when he's on the field, there tends to be turnovers coming his way. But I'm not even sure if Zeki Wheatley's going to start or not. So a guy like him, maybe Kalen King pulls in more interceptions. So it's possible. But what makes me hesitant is Jair Brown not being there.
I think that's fair. I'm going to say yes because Abdul Carter didn't play in the Purdue game, so he's going to play in one more game this year than he did last year. More Abdul Carter means more Havoc. And I think their defensive line is going to be better than last year as well. So more Havoc. It was insane. I mean, the Rutgers game, and I want to say it was the Indiana game, like they literally they almost broke the record twice for TFLs, which I consider Havoc. So I think they will have more, but I agree with your point regarding Tig Brown. I think Johnny Dixon is going to run. People keep talking about Jalen Reed and maybe KJ Winston, which I think KJ Winston would do a good job in that Prowler package as that. But I think Johnny Dixon's going to do a good job there too. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Next,
I think Johnny Dixon's the leader in the clubhouse for the Prowler role.
Next question comes from Randy Seeley, friend of not just the show, but of me. I think he likes me, that is. I know him personally, so I would hope so. This was in regard to the latest commits. He said, we are on a tear as far as numbers, but is the quality, 4 and 5 stars, what it needs to be to compete in the Big Ten East? And I think that's what it always boils down to, right? Like, can you beat Ohio State? Can you beat Michigan? Penn State, James Franklin can't win a game that matters, blah, 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 blah. But I get this point. And I think maybe people, again, with the latest commitment with Egan Boyer, that, they see the 3 stars and they're like, okay, great, we got a 3-star guy. They saw the Belgrave Shorter, 3-star guy. Okay, he's a 3-star guy. I am very high on Belgrave Shorter. I'm very high on Egan Boyer. I think both of those guys seriously could be 4 stars by the time it's all said and done. I really think, in regards to Egan Boyer and Garrett Sexton specifically, I really think those 2 guys did help Penn State further compete in the Big Ten East moving forward. I'm not saying every guy they've gotten to this point helps, but I do think the last 2 guys specifically, and I think in general, you're a top 8 class right now. The 2024 class has them in the right direction. Is it going to probably end up being a top 10 class? No, but it's not going to, it's going to be what you would consider a stacking of the classes. Like I would say this is going to end up being a good enough class where they're not going the wrong direction, which means they're going in the right direction, in my opinion.
Who won the Big Ten East the last 2 seasons?
Hail, hail to Michigan.
Yeah, we didn't either song, but yes. Michigan won the Big Ten East the last 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, we recruit year in and year out basically on Michigan's level. Some years they have a better class, some years we do. So the answer is yes. Yes. A lot of it comes down to development. And, just getting over that Ohio State hump. And it took Michigan many years to do it. But they were finally able to break through. So, yeah, I think they could. But they also have to stack classes because there is a difference between being a top 10 to 15 class and a top 20 to 25 class. So less classes like the class of 2021, which was heavily impacted by COVID and ended up having some pretty damn good players in that class too, regardless. And more classes like the class of 2022, like the class of 2023, like the class of 2024. That's really what it's about. It's about, like Cory said, it's about stacking the classes. And if you could stack top 10 to 15 classes together, yeah, I think if you're developing guys correctly, and if you figure out the all important quarterback position, and yeah, that's really what it's about, and finding enough playmakers around the quarterback. Yeah, like that's kind of what it's about. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but my answer is yes.
Yeah, right now the Big Ten East has 3 of the top 8 classes in 2024. So Penn State doing a good job. Michigan's on fire right now. I think they have the number 1 class at the moment, not on average, but overall. So they're not going to finish number 1, but they're recruiting really well right now. Blake Frazier did end up going to Michigan, by the way.
And 3 of the top 5 on 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's crazy.
We're number 5, so that's what we're going to go with.
Okay, good. Einstein von Braun, Mister. With Joey Porter Jr. being the top draft prospect and Parker Washington and Brent Strange being seemingly mid-late rounders, where do you see PJ Mustard? We talked about him already, so we don't need to go into it very much more. Haven't heard much outside of the Steelers really liking him early in the process. We saw that he talked to Bill Belichick and the Patriots too. We don't need to dive. I think we talked a lot about PJ Mustard today, but we do appreciate the question, Einstein von Braun. I think it is a good question. I feel like he had a second question, but I don't think I have it. So we're going to go to the next one. But thank you, Einstein von Braun, as usual. Longtime listener of the show. Shout out to him. Couple guys, Einstein von Braun's one of them. He will tweet us things to watch or listen to related to Penn State football if we haven't caught them yet. So we do appreciate that as well. Waiting for this next one to show up here.
Friend of the show.
This next one's from Steve Silver. Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson were both 11 and they're wide receiver 11 in their drafts. Dotson was wide receiver number 5, which many pundits thought was a reach. Hamler was wide receiver 10. That one probably worked out, I guess. Parker Washington is projected to be a mid-rounder. Why are Penn State wide receivers so disrespected lately? I wanted to answer this question with a question and say, are they really being disrespected? Like, okay, Allen Robinson, yeah, I think he actually was. Chris Godwin, I don't think nationally had the recognition, but I think we would agree he was disrespected. Like you said, I think KJ Hamler was about where he's supposed to be. I think we talked a lot about Parker Washington, so I don't think we have to go down the Parker Washington route specifically. But, I mean, Jahan Dotson went 16th overall, and I just don't think that's disrespectful. We'll find out in 10 years from now if that was the correct pick. I'm going to assume that he's going to have a better career than some of the guys that went before him. But you got to remember, like Penn State offensively before like 2016, like they rarely had anyone drafted. Like Allen Robinson getting drafted was like a big deal. Like there wasn't very many Penn State playmakers getting drafted. When Saquon, Gesicki, Godwin, Hamilton, that was like the first real season where Penn State was getting some offensive talent into the NFL. And they've done a really great job since then, right? Miles Sanders, Pat Freiermuth, the list goes on and on. But it wasn't really like that until the last 5 years or so. So I'm not prepared to say it's really disrespectful at this point, Shawn. And if you're going to make that argument, okay, fine, make that argument. But I'm not going to have Parker Washington be my poster child for that argument, right? Like he's not going to be the one I stick to my guns with. If there was a Jahan Dotson in this draft or a Chris Godwin in this draft or an Allen Robb, okay, fine. And maybe Keandre Lambert-Smith fits that bidding, depending on the season he has. We hype him up the way it is. But no offense to Parker Washington, but he was hurt. He didn't really, didn't show up to be consistent all the time. Never really became that number one guy. And so, no, I think they have Parker Washington correct.
I feel like Corey and I are harder on Parker Washington than some Penn State fans are. And it's just a disagreement. And I liked Parker while he was here, but I don't think he was on that level of a Allen Robinson, a Chris Godwin, or even a KJ Hamler. And look, those guys are all still playing in the NFL. And Chris Godwin won a Super Bowl. Allen Robinson was a Pro Bowler. KJ Hamler, if he could stay healthy, he is a really good receiver. His sole issue is health. Yeah. So do I think Penn State receivers are disrespected? Allen Robinson was, legitimately. And I think a lot of that might have had to do with, again, school reputations. Like I think the last guy before him the last receiver before him to get taken the first 2 rounds was Brian Johnson. And that was about 11 years prior. So I think there is some question about.
When did Butler get drafted? The 3rd round?
Yeah, I know he wasn't a top 2 round guy.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, he was disrespected. Godwin, I think, I don't know, Corey, did he seem as fast at Penn State as he was in the NFL? I mean, I don't know about
because
I remember having some questions about his speed. But
I don't think he played his best football at Penn State.
No, he kind of blew. He was good at Penn State. He was really good, but he might have got overshadowed.
And there were just so many weapons too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if Chris Godwin's on the team last year, I think he gets way more attention than he did that year. But it is what it is. No, I think Godwin didn't play his best football until he was in the NFL, and that wasn't a knock on Penn State. I just think this is the way he developed. I mean, you got to remember, these guys are, anywhere from 19 to 22, 23 years old. I mean, their bodies are still developing. You can make the same argument for Micah Parsons. So I don't want to crap on Steve too much here, but I'm just going to say there's other hills. There, just like me and Sean Clifford being drafted or not, there are better hills to die on, Steve. And I don't think this is the one you want to die on, respectfully.
Yeah, I mean, personally, in general, I don't think they're disrespected, no. Generally.
Now,
except
I do think it's interesting. So I do think you had a good point about how we kind of undervalue Parker Washington compared to a lot of other people. And I think we have that number one wide receiver, Allen Robinson, Jahan Dotson, take over a game and he had those moments, right? If he could do what he did against Minnesota or Ohio State all the time, but there were games where he disappeared, and there was enough of those games that made you wonder if you could really count on him all the time. And that's, I guess, why you get the mid-round grade.
Yeah. And Jahan was drafted 16th overall. I mean, yeah, maybe there's some so-called draft experts that might have seen him as a bit of a reach, but they were also wrong. I mean, when he played, I think he hurt his hamstring last year, but when he was in there, he scored a lot of touchdowns for just being a rookie, and he could be a 10 touchdown a year guy in the NFL. So it's possible that the Twitter jabronis were just wrong.
The jabronis are out.
Yeah, this is he was drafted probably right where he should have been.
Right.
And those people who were disrespecting him were just wrong.
It was a heavy wide receiver draft too. So
yep.
Which I feel like we're saying that more and more nowadays. But anyway, thank you for the fan questions. Again, you can tweet them, DM them to us at Hardcore PSUFB on Twitter. You can message them to Instagram. You can put them on Facebook as well.
If Dotson came out this year, I think he'd be the number one receiver taken.
Think he's taken over Jackson Smith and Jigba?
I think so.
What about?
Because Johnson seems to be falling down draft boards. Now, personally, my unbiased opinion, I think Quentin Johnston's a better NFL prospect than Dotson. But for whatever reason, he's falling down draft boards. So I think there's a chance he'd be the number one receiver taken if he came out this year.
I really think Jackson Smith and Jigba, people are really forgetting about how good he was.
They are.
And maybe he
that
won't
guy's
ever
gonna
be that
really
way.
good in the pros.
Right. Maybe, health, who knows, God forbid. But when he was 100% healthy, I think he's one of the like Marvin Harrison is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. But I think Jackson Smith and Jigba could have had the exact same impact if he could have stayed healthy this last year. So very glad Penn State didn't have to face him and Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, can you imagine just adding one more? Just think how disgusting that is. I'm going to end the recording, but thank you guys for the fan questions. But can you just imagine how disgusting that is? Like Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, Mbuka, Fleming. I mean, it keeps going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had to deal with Olave Wilson and Smith and Jigba. And
Yeah.
God, I remember watching I watched the 2021 Ohio State game with Mike, and I remember saying to him, I was like, am I the only one who thinks Smith and Jigba was better than these two guys? Like he was that good. And Garrett Wilson, I think he won Rookie of the Year last year. So yeah, I think if Houston was smart, if I were them, I would draft Stroud second, and then I would use that second pick in the top 15 on Smith and Jigba if he's still there. I think the whole Burrow to Chase thing is smart because they already have a rapport. I think going after that model, I think that's a smart thing to do.
Transitioning, former Penn State linebacker Cam Brown donated, I don't know how they came up with this number, but 6.5 years worth of food to families in Sierra Leone in West Africa. I wanted to highlight that cool thing. Cam Brown has consistently stayed in the NFL longer than I think maybe a lot of people gave him credit for. A very athletic guy. So my dog has come to say hello. But shout out to Cam Brown.
Wow.
You're muted, Shawn.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he's still around in the NFL, and I know he's a captain now with the Giants, and making a difference in a lot of people's life. So, shout out to you, Cam Brown.
I don't know how we're still recording, but I just dropped my entire other computer.
Yes, we are live.
Okay. Well,
We'll do it live.
we'll do it live. We're still live. I think I was muted. Did bust a little bit of my computer, so that's good. I'm gonna have to get some super glue on that. I wanted to finish with the 24/7 Sports top 32, and
Number one, Drew Aller.
they have omissions too, painful omissions they call it, who they didn't include in it. And I think this is a fun way to kind of just get us ready for the season, even though April's just ending. I want to thank you guys too. A really solid April as far as people listening, so appreciate you guys. Okay, I'm gonna run through them really quickly here, and then we can talk about them. Number 1, Caleb Williams, quarterback USC. Number 2, Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver Ohio State. Number 3, Brock Bowers, tight end Georgia. Number 4, Drake May, quarterback North Carolina. Kind of disagree there. Number 5, Harold Perkins, linebacker LSU. Kind of agree with that. Number 6, Kool-Aid McKinstry, cornerback from Alabama. Number 7, Olu Fashanu, Penn State. Number 8, Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. Number 9, Jared Verse, edge from Florida State. Number 10, Blake Corum, running back Michigan. Number 11, Travis Hunter, wide receiver corner from Colorado. Number 12, Jerzon Newton, defense tackle from Illinois, who I highlighted earlier. Number 13, Emeka Mbuka, for a wide receiver from Ohio State. Number 14, Braylon Allen, running back Wisconsin. Tell I don't like that one. Number 15, Dallas Turner, defensive end from Alabama. Number 16, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., linebacker from Clemson. Number 17, Braylon Trice, defensive end from Washington. Number 18, Jordan Travis, quarterback, Florida State. Number 19, Kalen DeLoach, linebacker, Florida State. Number 20, Kalen King, corner from Penn State, who, by the way, held his opponents to 18.3 passer rating in 2022. Number 21, Penn State fans know him very well, JTT, from defensive lineman from Ohio State. Also, Penn State fans know very well, number 22, Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, Washington. Number 23, Chris Abrams-Drain, corner from Missouri. 24, Michael Williams, defensive end from Georgia. Number 25, Small can never say his name right. Small Mondon, linebacker, Georgia. Very good. Number 26, Cade Klubnik, quarterback, Clemson. I thought that was interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. Number 27, Dominic Lovett, wide receiver, Georgia. Number 28, Penn State fans know well, Bo Nix, quarterback, Oregon. Number 29, Javon Bullard, defensive back, Georgia. Number 30, Quinshawn Judkins, running back, Ole Miss. Number 31, Cooper Beebe, offensive lineman, Kansas State. And number 32, Cameron Kitchens, safety, Miami. Kitchens really good, actually. Painful omissions included Penn State defensive end Chop Robinson and Penn State running back Nick Singleton. So, Shawn.
Yeah, you're goddamn right they're omitted.
I feel like maybe there's more to this than the first thing to me. Okay, if you want to admit Nick Scott, oh man, I blame you for that one. Nick Singleton and Chop Robinson, I'm not like opposed to that. Like if you want to say they're not top 32, I'm not going to argue that in April. But if you're going to put Braylon Allen 14 at Wisconsin, that just baffles me. Like that to me is just incorrect and wrong. Like I just don't believe in that. So that one upset me. The other one that upset me, I get not having Drew Aller on this list. I totally agree with that. But Cade Klubnik hasn't done anything either. And to put Klubnik on that list, it just baffles me because Klubnik and him were basically the same player coming out of college. Like they were 1 and 2 or 1 and 2, depending on where you were looking at the recruiting rankings. And if anything, Drew Aller actually played more in backup time than Klubnik did. Like he played more football when it was all said and done than Klubnik did, I believe. So to have him on that list so high and not have Drew Aller on there, I think was kind of an inconsistency. I'm glad Kalen King made the list. And I honestly am a little surprised. Not that I think Chop Robinson doesn't deserve to be on the painful omission list. I'm surprised that they nationally recognized Chop Robinson, to be honest with you. I just didn't think he was getting that much national attention, but I guess he is.
Yeah, I feel like Chop Robinson is like the best kept secret on this team. And I think Abdul Carter
I thought he would be
him.
Yeah, I thought he would be a painful omission, but he wasn't either.
Yeah, I think he kind of overshadows him a little bit. We talked about reputation a few times tonight. Penn State's linebacker he wears number 11, and I think nationally people know what that number 11 means. They're thinking of Micah, they're thinking of LeVar. If they're smart, they're thinking of Navarro Bowman too. And Abdul Carter dons that number. So, yeah. And Singleton off the list. I mean, I could live with it. And Drew Aller, in my mind, shouldn't be on the list. I think with Klubnik, the one thing that sticks out in my mind that he did that Aller didn't do was, remember when Syracuse was playing? It was the day of Mike and Alex's wedding. Syracuse was playing Clemson, as Corey shakes his head, and Klubnik did come in and win them the game. And
no, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did not.
Oh,
he did not.
Well,
win
they
them
were.
the game.
All right. Well, they were playing really bad.
Go watch the film.
Ugalele.
Go watch the film.
And then Klubnik came in
and did terrible. Game. Terrible. He did awful.
He won the game.
Awful. Go watch the game again. And that's not what happened at all. He was running for his life and did awful. Syracuse, I believe they turned it over 3 times, and I think Clemson scored defensively on one of them. And just go watch the film this weekend. That's your homework, Shawn. Klubnik did not win them that football game.
All right. Well, keep in mind, it was the morning of a wedding, and I was a few beers in.
I was sitting there.
I
was pulling a Sean Kane. I was in my boxer briefs with watching that game on my hotel bed.
Okay, so it turns out he didn't play as great as I thought. He was 2 of 14 for 19 yards. Okay. All right. But I see they won the game.
Don't get me started on that.
All right. Well,
I don't think Drew Aller should be on there either. I 100% agree with you. I just don't think he should be on there at all. Okay, here's a good example. They have Klubnik on there, but they don't have Sam Hartman on there. And I think Sam Hartman should be on there before Klubnik. Sam Hartman has at least done things when he was at Wake Forest. Now he's at Notre Dame. Like, to me, if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'm pissed. Like, how do you have Klubnik over Sam Hartman? Like, that would actually upset me.
Klubnik did beat North Carolina. Wait, right?
Who didn't beat North Carolina there at the end?
Oh, I remember we had a beef for like a couple weeks with some writer about North Carolina.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, I forgot about that.
He was trying to tell us that they belong in a college football playoff, and then they lost every single game after that he said that. Every single one of them.
Yeah, see, he put the jinx on them, and I think he also disrespected Penn State in the same.
Well, I think he's an Ohio
article.
State fan.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had seen him before, but then, yeah, I forgot about that beef.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he's an Ohio State fan. So, like, he's a national writer, but
can't wait for the season to get back because that stuff's so fun.
Anyway, it's a thing in April. I don't want to make too much of it, but it's fun to start talking about it. I would have not had Aller on there. I wouldn't have had Klubnik either.
Are you surprised Olu's on there so high?
No, because, and if you read the article, it says, but like, he potentially was going to be the number one offensive tackle in the NFL draft this year. Like, him or Paris Johnson were going to be, maybe Skarunsky, but probably not. So, no, I think he's gained that attention and deserved it. But I see what you're saying because he hasn't really played that much football. I mean,
it's just the sample size is small. And I love Olu. He's the best. He might be the best offensive tackle I've ever seen at Penn State, but it's just sample size is small.
Right. No, I see your point. 7's pretty damn high. Like 7 is like you are a top 10 player in the country. So I get what you're saying completely. We'll be back next week. I don't want to, if you made it this far in the show, first of all, please drop us a 5-star review. If you made it this far in the show, I'll hint to you that we plan to have a 2024 commit on the show. And we plan to, I just got confirmation that they want to do the interview. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it to work out time-wise. But the director of Lions Legacy Club has also agreed to come on the show too. So, and I have a third invitation out to someone else, and we'll see. I think that person's on vacation right now, but hopefully we will get 3 yeses, and we'll have our 3 interviews for May 10th, 24th, and 31st taken care of.
Sounds great.
But thank you guys so much for listening. It was a really good April. So appreciate y'all. That's all I got, Shawn.
Yeah, that's all I got too. This was fun, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everyone, for watching on YouTube. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure to do that on YouTube. If you actually, wherever you're listening, make sure you're subscribed. Whatever podcast directory you're listening to. You've been listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. For Shawn Kane, I'm Cory Listoki. Have a great rest of your week. And we are counting up down starting next week, Shawn.
All right. That's something I owe you guys.